Okay, everyone, I'm back. This is Nicole Ali. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I was just watching a video from Lisa Cabrera where she discussed the fact that Vivitrol is not working as effectively as it should. And one reason, which they didn't discuss in the video the audio of the video that she played, in this small little podunk redneck town of about what 10,000 people or so, I guess. They only have one street light, but they have 3 rehab centers for drug people, these junkies. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it. These are junkies, drug addicts, meth heads, heroin heads, opioid heads, and of course you already know how I feel, cause I feel nothing. So it's real simple. And what I noticed is they didn't discuss the science behind Vivitrol failure, the reason for it failing. One reason I could conclude is Vivitrol is highly specific for certain receptors in the brain, and when drug companies develop the drug they want to use, they want to make sure 2 things are critical. It has high sensitivity and or high specificity. So you can look this up for yourself to confirm what I'm saying. I don't speak out my ass when I talk about this type of stuff. I think Crew Reality, he would agree with me. He also works in a similar field. That your sensitivity and specificity of your drugs are very important when you're doing the manufacturing process and when you're testing these drugs in clinical trials. So sensitivity is, excuse me, how sensitive the drug is in specific populations for a certain reason. You know, what it's going to treat and how quickly it treats it. Specificity sometimes is not time dependent. Specificity can be dose dependent. So the more drug you give, the more of a response you're going to get from a patient. The less drug you give, the lower the response. So that's how specificity works. And in terms of a drug like Vivitrol or Prozac or Cyclerc, Metadate, Risperdal, Adderall, and all the rest of these types of drugs, or methamphetamines, heroin, opioids, you want to make sure your specificity is moderate to high. If it's low, then you have the person relapsing quickly. If it's high, if it's too high, you can kill the patient. Okay, so the specificity, in my opinion, of Vivitrol is very high, which is not good because it leaves receptors that would be responding to drugs like methamphetamines open. It does not catch the receptors. It's not able to bind to receptors that would bind methamphetamines, for instance. So I simply went on Google and searched Vivitrol failure. And the first thing that pops up is an article from 2017 from Vox. I visited this page. Of course, you can see, what was that? I guess that's yesterday. Because I was interested in Vivitrol as an opioid medication, a way to treat opioid addiction. And what they see here is, in their title, a new study found a big problem with a popular opioid addiction medication. They say a long-awaited study compared 2 opioid addiction treatments. There's good and bad news. So this woman is walking through, I guess, a train station or something, and there's a advertisement for Vivitrol. Naltrexone for extended release. And when you come down, they have links in blue, this bluish color, for opioid epidemic. They're calling it an opioid epidemic. These are drug addicts, okay? They also come down, if you come down some more, they say for the first time, a new study, that's a link, in The Lancet, sponsored by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, so that's sponsored by the NIH. It compared the effectiveness of naltrexone with buprenorphine in the U.S. Buprenorphine is a agonist that helps to, we call it buprenex, helps to relieve inflammation when you're doing surgeries. The results were both promising and disappointing. While naltrexone is as effective as buprenorphine once treatment begins, it is also significantly more difficult to actually start naltrexone because it requires an extensive detox period, which is a washout. That can span more than a week, that buprenorphine does not. So buprenorphine in this instance is more effective long-term than naltrexone. So they have a lot of other information here. I suggest you go and read this. They talk about fentanyl, OxyContin, medication-assisted treatment. I don't think any of us would need to know a lot about this stuff because we're not on these drugs. But it's important to see how they are coddling these people who are addicted to these drugs. So I'm going to go up to the top because basically they're telling you what the study found. But I think it's important to go directly to the source whenever looking for different things. So I'm going to click this link. It takes you right to the article itself. It comes from The Lancet. The Lancet is a very well-renowned, well-published, well-documented, highly scrutinized journal. And that's one thing to note. If you have a journal you're reading, a scientific journal, for instance, and it's not highly scrutinized, then there's some issues there. You know, you may have some issues with, I would have issues with it if it was not scrutinized and if it was not peer reviewed. Okay, so most of the scientific research is peer reviewed. If it's not, there's a problem with it. They give their background methods, their findings, which is their results, their interpretation, which is their conclusions, and they tell you that they do have a conflict of interest because their funding includes the NIDA Clinical Trials Network. Okay, National Institutes of Drug Abuse. So we have to keep that in mind. I'm going to download the PDF real quick, if I can. Okay, it won't let me do it. You must have to have a subscription to them. I'm just going to do the simplified view here so you can see it better. So they have a comparative effectiveness of extended release naltrexone versus buprenorphine naloxone for opioid relapse prevention. It's called XBOT. A multi-center, open-label, randomized controlled trial. So a lot of us hear about clinical trials, but don't know how to look for them. And you see how easy it was for me to get in here to find this clinical trial and do my own analysis of what they were studying. They initiated a 24-week, so 6-month, open-label, randomized, controlled, comparative effectiveness trial at 8 U.S. community-based inpatient services and followed up participants as outpatients. Participants were 18 years or older. That's showing you right there that this opioid drug issue that they are having starts very young, because you're not an addict at 18 years old. You had to have started earlier than that, right? So they said they had Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. That's the DSM-5, the DSM-5, opioid use disorder, and had used non-prescribed opioids in the past 30 days. That's illegal. Non-prescribed opioids is illegal. We stratified participants by treatment site and opioid use severity and used a web-based permuted block design with random equally weighted block sizes of 4 and 6 for randomization. That's a 1-to-1 ratio to receive XR, NTX, or buprenex. So they're using the XR, which is extended release, this drug at the top, what is it called? Naltrexone, or the BUPNX, buprenorphine. So I'm going to call it XR or BUP. XR was monthly intramuscular injections. That's Vivitrol, Alkermes. I think that's the company that produces it. It's Alkermes. So Vivitrol is the drug that Lisa talked about, that they talked about in her video. I'll leave that in the description box. Bup was daily self-administered buprenorphine naloxone sublingual film. So you have this film, this like a Listerine strip that you put under your tongue, self-administered. One was given intramuscular. That means you're giving it into the muscle, usually into the butt, the buttocks, or into the thigh. And this other one was given, the patient gives it to themselves. The primary outcome was opioid relapse-free survival during 24 weeks of outpatient treatment. Now wait, that tells you that they expected some patients to die after 6 months of outpatient treatment. I just want you to keep that in mind. Relapse was four consecutive weeks of any non-study opioid use by urine toxicology or self-report, or 7 consecutive days of self-reported use. And you can see this trial is registered with clinicaltrials.gov, and they give their number, their trial number, NCT 0203 2433. That's their number. Apologize for that. This is what they found, and I'm going to skip down past their significance and come down here. Let's see, where was it? I might have to just read the whole thing. Okay, their findings are not that long. They said between January 30th, 2014 and May 25th, 2016, we randomly assigned 570 participants to receive XR or BUP. The last follow-up visit was January 31st, 2017. As expected, XR had a substantial induction hurdle. Fewer participants successfully initiated XR. Among all participants who were randomly assigned, 24-week relapse events were greater for XR than for BUP, with a hazard ratio of 1 to 36, 95% confidence interval. That's what CI means, confidence interval. Most or all of this difference accounted for by early relapse in nearly all of the XR induction failures. So they're telling you that the XR extended release, now naltrexone, failed across the board with a lot of the patients that were giving it intramuscular injection. Among participants successfully inducted, 24-week relapse events were similar across study groups. Opioid negative urine samples and opioid abstinent days, that was the days they washed out, they didn't take it. Those days favored BUP compared with XR among the intention to treat population, but were similar across study groups among the per protocol population. Self-reported opioid craving was initially less with XR than with BUP. So self-reported opioid craving was initially less. That means the beginning, people with the naltrexone didn't need it as much as the ones with BUP. But see, you don't need it as much when you're getting it intramuscular injected versus taking it yourself in the beginning. You have to understand these people already are addicted to the drug. So they say, so in the beginning, of course, you're going to have an initial low craving because you're having it reversed. You're having the effects of the drug you're normally taking reversed. But over time, the body starts to build up a resistance, or the body starts to respond deleteriously or negatively to that drug that should be relieving you of your opioid addiction. Because what should happen is the opioids normally bind to receptors in the brain. The XR and buprenorphine should replace the opioids on the receptors, and then they basically switch places where the electromagnetic pull from the XR, the buprenorphine, should cause the opioid to release from the receptors, bind to this drug. The drug switches around and binds to the receptor, preventing any other opioids from binding to those receptors because it's now bound to this new drug. That's what it's supposed to do. Initially, that does happen. Over time, it does not work as effectively. That's what they're talking about in this article, and many others as well. They go on to say, with the exception of mild to moderate XR injection site reactions, treatment emergent adverse events, including overdose, did not differ between treatment groups. 5 fatal overdoses occurred, 2 in the XR group and 3 in the BUP group. So they're interpreting that in this population, it is more difficult to initiate patients to XR than bup, and this negatively affected overall relapse. However, once initiated, both medications were equally safe and effective. Future work should focus on facilitating induction to XR and on improving treatment retention for both medications. And see, I can't really trust what they say here because they're funded, once again, by the NIDA Clinical Trials Network. And another thing they have here, which I don't like, they do a lot, is to read this article in full, you need to make a payment. These some hustlers. They want to hustle you. You got to make a payment and log in, all this other bullshit. Basically, what they're saying is, in the beginning, XR worked better than bup, but at the end, they were seen to be equally safe and effective. Now, what does that mean? You don't know what that means until you make a payment. So, from this, I would say their research may not have been done the way that you would expect it to be done. However, with what they have to deal with as far as these patients, I think they did their best. However, I really don't know. I'm still questioning. I don't really know because I don't see the actual data. I don't see graphs and statistics. I don't see any brain scans that were done. I don't see any enzyme analysis or urine analysis that was done or toxicology reports that were done. So I'm still, for me, the jury is still out, but I will stick to my original claim that the naltrexone or Vivitrol is highly specific for certain receptors. And if that is the case, it is not necessarily a good drug. And as you saw from Lisa's video, the patients are still having a craving for the drug that they were getting on the street. So with that, I'll leave you, and I hope that you have a chance to peruse the articles and links in the description box. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. If you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. For those of you who have already subscribed, thank you so much for your support. I hope this was helpful to you if you wanted to look up research articles and do your own fact checking. If I misspoke and said something wrong, please let me know. I'd like to, have a, an intellectual dialogue with you all. Trolls, please go away. I don't want to hear what you have to say. And that's all for me. I'll see you later in the next video. Have a great day.